Hey, how are you? My name's Felt, and this video will be about the easiest to pilot and probably strongest Warlock build I've ever used. Now, this build isn't anything new or explosive or crazy and out there. It's a build that's been around probably since the Solo 3.0 rework, but I figured I'd make a video on it now because there's lots of new content coming out that is either level synced, enemies are forced to be a level above you, or just low-man content where a build like this really shines. So I thought it'd be a great time to revisit the build, talk about it a little bit, and hopefully explain to you what makes it so strong, and hopefully convince you to use it if you haven't been convinced yet. Let's get started. Now, a bit of a disclaimer here. This build works best in quote-unquote low-man content, i.e. you're either running with 3 people or 2 people or just by yourself, because this is a build basically dedicated to being a selfish player who wants to do as much damage as humanly possible, add clear fast, and murder the world. But it works in 6-person content pretty okay. It's just not as strong as some other optional builds that are out there. We're actually going to start by talking about the exotic first, because the exotic is the cornerstone of this build, the exotic being the Starfire Protocol. Now what does that do? If you've never heard of the exotic, or living under a rock or something like that, it has an exotic perk called Fusion Harness. Fusion grenades have an additional charge and recharge from empowered weapon damage. Fusion grenade kills grant Rift energy. What does that actually mean? It means that if you're standing in either an empowering rift or your Well of Radiance, your grenades recharge as you deal damage to stuff. Fusion grenade kills will actually instantly give you back your entire rift. It's a bit of a misnomer, or misexplanation, so to speak, but a fusion grenade kill gives you back your entire rift, so it's not granting energy, it's giving you your cooldown, making it just incredibly powerful in that regard. So with all that in mind, let's talk about what you're going to use for it. Well of Radiance, obviously. If you're getting faster grenade cooldowns and this build is all about throwing those fancy grenades, you're going to be using Well of Radiance. You're going to also be using Empowering Rift. Now technically you can use just a normal Healing Rift with this build, however, you're not going to be getting your grenades back as fast to be able to kill stuff as fast. Jump, whatever you like, honestly, I like Burst. Melee, whatever you like, I prefer the long-range Celestial Fire. Grenade has to be fusion grenades, because otherwise it doesn't work with the exotic. What are you doing? Run the right grenade for your exotic. Aspects. The important one is Touch of Flame. If you are not running Touch of Flame with this build, you are being a very silly individual, because Touch of Flame causes your fusion grenades to explode twice. Now, I don't know the actual math, but the bottom line about it is that it will effectively double your damage on your sticky nades. And because sticky nades are such a quick throw, it really adds up, especially when your sticky grenades are, as the description says, scorching on detonation, causing ignitions, typically, because of, well, you know, the scorch that you're applying. Now, your other aspect doesn't really matter as much. I use Icarus Dash because I'm a movement speed fiend. However, Heat Rises is technically usable inside of this build, as the other aspect is just kind of there to be strong for your build. So let's talk about fragments. And we're talking about blistering first. Defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy. Pretty useful stuff. It basically means that getting grenade kills and grenades causing ignitions will give you back grenade energy, making it kind of an endless loop on itself. On top of that, if you're using a weapon with incandescent, all of a sudden your ignition kills from an incandescent weapon will give you more grenade energy. Feeds back around into the build. You might think that's a little unnecessary, but it's really useful when you're running out of grenade energy because you either put down your rift in the wrong spot and you had to go and hide in a corner, you threw your grenade and it didn't get a kill so you didn't get a rift back, stuff like that. It's good for a backup scenario. Ember of Wonder. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power. It's free resilience, it makes orbs of power on ignitions, you're going to make a ton of those anyways. Perfect stuff. Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. Gives you free recovery too, which is pretty nice. You know, I think this is a little unnecessary, like you don't really use melees in this build. However, as you're about to see in the next fragment, melees will make you radiant, making Ember of Searing just a little bit better. Melees can also cause ignitions and scorch targets, and in general, it just kind of helps you cycle through all of your abilities faster. Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. It does what it says on the tin. So there are 2 exotics that you will use for this build, and I will accept no substitutes. One of them being Witherhoard. Witherhoard shoots a blighted AoE that does damage over time on the ground, or damage over time if it hits an enemy and direct impacts them. If it direct impacts them, it stickies to them and does damage over time while being stuck to them. This type of thing functions very well with Starfire's Protocol's ability to recharge your grenades while stuff is taking damage, meaning that it is a literal set it and forget it DPS boost to allow you to just spam grenades while the sticky is stuck inside of the enemy. Another exotic that does a very similar thing is Anarchy. Anarchy sticks a bunch of arc mines either to the target or to the ground, causing a bunch of arcing electricity arc web things. The bottom line is that it does damage over time, like Wither Horde, and that it does it in a very, very solid fashion, in a very hands-off fashion that allows it to just sit there ticking, charging your grenades, allowing you to just focus on throwing grenades in place of worrying about anything else. Now, if I'm using Wither Horde, I'll typically have on a linear fusion rifle as just another weapon to be able to do DPS with, but typically you are just going to be throwing grenades as fast as you can throw them, but it's nice to have a backup. And if I have Wither Horde on, I'll have a sniper rifle on, similar to the Succession, with something like Focused Fury, Triple Tap, Reconstruction, something along those lines, to allow me to just continuously shoot out shots while I'm throwing out grenades at the same time, something to just kind of help the DPS along. As for my energy weapon, I will essentially always be using a submachine gun. On average, the Callus Mini Tool because it has incandescent on it, but it could also be the Funnel Web or the Ikelos SMG, depending on if I need to match shields for elemental reasons. Let's talk about modding. Mod till you have 100 resilience, and you have as close to 100 discipline as you can get. That's the most important part. After that, make sure you have elemental ordnance equipped. This way your grenade kills will make you elemental solar wells. Then make sure you have bountiful wells equipped. This way you're making 2 wells per grenade throw, giving you just more energy back in every way possible. Also run Well of Life. You don't have a lot of built-in healing in the kit because we don't have a healing rift, we just have an empowering rift. Well of Life helps take care of that. The healing effect isn't as strong as a restoration effect, but it is still a nice heal over time. You can also run Font of Might for if you are running a weapon that can be empowered by Font of Might, say like a Callus Mini Tool or maybe a Cataclysmic in your heavy slot. Pretty powerful mod, highly recommended. Now, the class item gets a little weird right now, because right now for solo play there is a correct build. It is Weakened Clear and Solo Operative, because the damage boost from Solo Operative is around 15 to 20%, I believe, and Weakened Clear is an incredibly powerful debuff, making it so that your damage just skyrockets. However, if you are not doing it solo, you'll probably remove the Solo Operative, and if you're looking at this build in the future, you won't have Weakened Clear either. So, you will typically run something more akin to this one, where you're running utility kickstarts and an elemental time dilation to get more value out of your rift cast, in case you're not getting grenade kills. Don't know how, but just in case. And time dilation to give you more damage to give you more time with the damage up of Font of Might. You could instead also run Seeking Wells, like is on this bond here. I know that's all it has on it, but that's all it would really ever need, TBH. But Seeking Wells will make it so that all the wells you make will home in on you and give you your Well of Life. And that's it. That's the build. That's the video. Thanks for hanging on and watching. If you liked this, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and comment. That'll help me out a great deal. I don't do a ton of Destiny videos all the time. I'm more of a variety content creator, so if you check out all the videos on my channel, you'll find stuff along the lines of Final Fantasy XIV, Magic the Gathering, and various other games that I play. However, Destiny is a mainstay for me and on this channel, so if that's all you're here for, stick around. There'll be Destiny videos coming out all the time, but if you want to see more Destiny content, I'll typically do that on my stream, which will be linked below. So make sure you go there and check that out as well. Regardless of all of that shilling from myself, thanks for hanging out and watching. I hope you liked the video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.